my creativity can be so forced a lot of times because I'm just like rushing on to the next thing. And you actually have to be bored to be creative. I'm an artist. I'm a painter mainly. A painter of people and places and stories that I think are really interesting and little moments that we see every day but just be able to notice. I'm just excited to kind of play around with pigments, which I haven't really done in the sense of loose pigment that isn't bound up in some sort of oil. I know loosely how paint works at this point, but I'm also like really open to the fact that like I've never mixed my own paint before, and these are pigments, and I'm not sure how they're going to interact.
I'm going to give you guys some basic terms that applies to all paint. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to talk about the idea of formulas and the components inside of every single paint structure. So first of all, a paint formula is a recipe. How do you just bake or cook?
When you start mixing your own paint, your relationship to the materials changes. I'm a painter. I'm also a professor of painting, and I always try to teach materials. As an artist, you're collaborating with your materials. You have to learn about their personality. You have to learn about your personality. You can't let your materials control you. You can't force the materials to do something that isn't in their nature. Here in Lacoste, I think because we're so close to Roussillon and the ochre mines, it just became a natural relationship to this place. And then that just kind of opened the door to the history of ochre and the history of the materials. When you have, say, an oil paint, you're going to be making, you start off with a proportion of your dry pigment. You're going to then start to slowly add your binder of choice, which is going to be wet, into the pile of the dry pigment. You're going to slowly kind of mix them in, kind of thinking of baking or cooking. You kind of want to slowly mix the wet into the dry materials.
I thought I might try and use some of these colors to paint some rocks from Roussillon, where we got the pigments. I'm just kind of seeing if I can mimic some of that or play with some of that maybe.
I think that if you were to make work in one place, it's going to change regardless of a little bit of wherever you go. And so I try as much as possible to encourage students to, again, play and explore. But through that, I want to teach them about what makes the materials work a certain way. You kind of break down what actually makes up the pigment and understanding it completely. So for instance, ochre is, the core of it is a clay. It's like a porcelain clay, and then it's surrounded by iron oxide. So because that center is that reflective interior, it's kind of going to reflect light differently than any synthetic material. I think once a student begins making their own paint, they really nerd out on it. You have people that really want to know their tools, and they want to know them in and out, because there's a different connection from before the painting begins all the way through to the end.
I really do think that the place we're in impacts us so much. And so to work with like a material that was really foreign, because the place is foreign, was I think really refreshing in a lot of ways. Painting a scene from Roussillon that had a lot of the colors that I picked out was also really cool, because that like lent itself to like a natural replication, and I think we need some sort of structure to have freedom. I think that's always the case. And so having the structure of like, I'm going to paint something that's really symbolic and emblematic of these pigments allowed me to really lean into the pigment strengths.
I hope that they get excited when they learn more about what they're actually working with. It's not a mystery of what's in this tube. You know, it's kind of an unmasking, you know, what the materials are, and I want them to get excited. I want them to be curious. Into prehistory, you know, our original marks that were made with ochre and charcoal. And across human civilization, it's a material that has crossed language, time, everything. And I think that if you realize the history that's embedded within the materials, that again, your connection to those materials becomes much deeper, because you realize you're part of this amazing lineage of human creativity.